This is the March workshop of Simply Neuroscience, and today's workshop is based on the emotional brain. We are super excited to have you guys here, and as always, through the middle, you can always type in questions in the chat.
Hi guys. My name is Raksha and I'm one of your presenters today. I'm a junior in high school and I'm really excited to be here.
Hello, my name is Amathini, and I am a senior in Maryland. I'm also super excited to be here, and I cannot wait to teach you guys.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Elizabeth. I'm one of the co-leads of the Presynaptic Project. Unfortunately, the other co-leads couldn't make it today, but nonetheless, we're all super excited for you guys to be joining us once again, and we're super excited for you guys to learn the really exciting lesson today.
If any of the other members want to go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Dina Khan and I'm an 11th grader in New Jersey, and I'm also your Google Classroom coordinator.
And hello, my name is Siraj. I'm a grade 10 student from Brampton, Ontario, Canada, and I will be your office hours host for this month. And yes, I am also excited to be here.
Okay, I think that's pretty much it. So, as always, you can always type in any questions in the chat that you want to ask any one of us, and we'll try our best to answer. So now let's take a moment to have you guys also introduce yourself. So in the chat, go ahead and type your name if you want your grade and what your favorite ice cream flavor is. All right. I see some very common flavors here, like cookie dough, cookies and cream. So I'm pretty sure all of those are delicious, but thank you for typing your answer in the chat. And if you had not put it in yet, you can always put it in. And I'm pretty sure everyone else would like to know a little bit about you as well. So we're gonna go ahead and move on.
Okay, so just some housekeeping rules. Please make sure to keep your video and audio off during the workshop unless you're asked. And if you didn't provide media consent, then don't keep your video or audio on at all. So just keep it off the entire time. And you can use the chat to ask any questions you have throughout the presentation and try to keep it appropriate. Try to not do anything any inappropriate. And all workshops will be recorded and we'll be posting it on the YouTube for you to review in the future. And as always, you don't have to attend every workshop, but we are taking attendance for our prizes and certificates in June.
So besides this actual workshop, there is another time that you can also ask more questions and learn more about the emotional brain if you want to. And that is what we call office hours. So I think Suraj mentioned it earlier, but he is our office hours host. So he will be on another Zoom call next Saturday at the same time to go over anything that you have questions on, or if you don't understand anything about the virtual challenge, which we'll talk about at the very end. He will talk about all of that. So you can just pop in to the call and ask him any questions. And the Zoom link for that will be posted after this workshop in the Google Classroom.
All right, so because we're going to be focusing on the emotional brain, obviously we have to talk about emotions. So to start off with our pre-workshop question, just make a list of any emotions you can think of in the chat. And if you're also following along on the Neuro Notebooks, I think Amalini put the link in the chat there. That's the first question. So you could also fill it in there. But to start off, just everybody put in for the chat. Wow, those are a lot of emotions. You guys are all right. I see a lot of sadness, happiness, angry. These are all emotions that we all feel.
I posted a link to the Neuro Notebook once again, so it is a great way to follow along. We put like guided notes on there, so to make sure that you guys like can take notes from this lesson and you can refer back to it later. So you can click on that and you should be able to make a copy of it. And if you don't know how to, please let us know. I think there was a question. If you have not attended the January and February workshop, but you attended this one, that will not affect, I don't think that will affect your certificate of completion. Just to be sure, Elizabeth, can you confirm?
Yeah, so basically, it's not every workshop that you have to attend. Because you registered after, there was no way that you could have attended before, so it will definitely not affect your certificate of completion.
Okay, I hope that answers your question, Morgan. But if you still have any questions, you can stay at the very end. We'll go over them. Okay, so I think we were leading up to this question. So have you guys ever wondered what really allows you to perform or use the emotions that you do use in your everyday life? I know, I'm pretty sure you guys already know that the brain is in charge of that. It is what controls basically our entire body. It determines the way we act, the way we behave, and our emotions too. But there is a specific set of structures within our brain that allows us to perform these emotions, store memories, and exhibit arousal. And this structure or the set of structures is referred to as the limbic system. And that's what we're going to be learning about today. The limbic system contains regions that detect fear, it controls bodily functions, and it helps us perceive any new sensory information. So we're going to learn more about this throughout this presentation.
Okay. Just before we continue the presentation, make sure if you have like the Neuro Notebook, to keep it open, because for all of this, there are guided notes to like fill in the blanks with information, just so you can keep up with it. So try to do that if you can. Okay, so emotions that we talked about, you guys put a lot in the chat. They're all connected to the structure of the limbic system that Amadini just talked about. So the limbic system is located in a structure called the temporal lobe. So if you look at the image on the screen, the brain on the left is kind of separated into 4 main regions or lobes, right? And the temporal lobe is that green one right there. And then that's where the limbic system is located. So the one on the right, the brain on the right, is showing you all the different structures of the limbic system that we're going to be going into. And the temporal lobe is located kind of near your ear on like the side of your face. So you could imagine that's where the limbic system is located, more in like the center of your brain. So we know that emotions are processed, but where exactly are they processed? So this happens in a structure within the limbic system called the amygdala. And amygdala basically takes in input from other brain functions and then causes you to react with a certain emotion. So let's say memory and attention are 2 different brain functions, right? And let's say, for example, you are paying attention to what your teacher is saying in school, and then it's something that you didn't know before. So your brain would take in all of that information, your amygdala would receive it, and then it would react with the emotion surprise, because you're surprised you didn't learn this before and that it's something that you're new. So that's basically what the amygdala does and how it processes emotion. So it's called the center of emotional processing.
So like Raksha was saying, there are 4 specific structures that we are going to be focusing on today. And those structures are the hypothalamus, the thalamus, the amygdala, and the hippocampus. Make sure in your neuro notebook, you are copying down this information as well. So we're going to be covering more about these 4 structures in specific throughout this presentation.
Okay, so the thalamus is the first structure that we're going to be talking about. So the thalamus is located above the brainstem between the cerebral cortex and the midbrain. So that's a lot of words, but on this image, if you look at like the bottom part, like that lightish goldish brown color at the bottom with like, that's the brainstem. And the top of that is the midbrain. Right on top of that, you see the green kind of lobe, that's the thalamus. And the cerebral cortex is basically like the top part of the brain with all of the lines and the squiggles. So the thalamus is basically relaying any information that you get, like motor information and sensory information that comes via this midbrain to different parts of the cerebral cortex, because that's how you can function and do a lot of the things that you do. And it's also very important for emotions. So you could think of the thalamus kind of like the middleman or like the mailman that takes in information from the brainstem and then relays it to different parts of the cerebral cortex so that you could react or do whatever action you need to do. And it's also how emotions are created in response to the signals that are relayed from the body to the spinal cord, to the midbrain, and then to the thalamus, from where it gives off wherever it needs to. The hypothalamus is another structure we're going to be talking about, and it's located at the base of the brain, right below the thalamus. So if you've heard the word hypo before, you know hypo means below, so you could just think of the hypothalamus as below the thalamus. So wherever the thalamus, it's right underneath that. And it is very important in maintaining homeostasis. And homeostasis is kind of like the body's standard internal conditions. So like if you think about temperature, we have like a standard temperature that's healthy. And if we go higher than that, then we say we have a fever. So homeostasis is kind of regulating all the different things that are maintained in our internal conditions. And the hypothalamus is very important in making sure that we are at that level, because if we go away from it, it can be dangerous for our body. And it does this by coordinating the pituitary gland, which is another gland that can release various things to get yourself back to normal. And often these are hormones. Hormones, if you've heard of like insulin related to diabetes, that's one hormone. And there's another hormone called stress hormones. So this is a connection you can make between the hypothalamus and another structure we're going to be talking about, the amygdala. So when hormones called stress hormones are released, that's what actually triggers the amygdala, which I talked about before as is what's going to cause you to process an emotion and kind of display it. So that's a connection you can make. In addition to that, the hypothalamus is also really important for controlling hunger, thirst, etc. So if you think about like, and also fight or flight. So you could remember this as the 3 F's for the 3 functions of the hypothalamus: fleeing, so fight or flight is fleeing, food, and fight.
Now on to the hippocampus. So the hippocampus is located in the cerebral cortex within the temporal lobe that Raksha went over. So it's basically one of the regions inside the temporal lobe. So it's like right next to like your ear. And it is the main region that regulates and processes all the memories that we have. So whether it be short, especially like long-term memories, but any kind of visual, spatial, or emotional memory that you have, it's probably stored here. So the hippocampus is especially important for coding, processing, and storing all these memories, alongside allowing us to form connections between different faces and names. So it allows us to like recognize and recall many different things that we have learned in the past. So the left hippocampus, it takes in any verbal information that you learn and stores that, versus the right hippocampus takes in more visual and spatial information. So I think there's something in the chat. Which part of the brain causes the pseudobulbar effect? That question, I am not actually sure what the correct answer is, but while we do the Emoji Project, which is one of the activities we'll do later on, I'll try my best to find the answer for you, Morgan. But yes, that's the hippocampus. And if you are ever like struggling to remember something, or you are like memorizing something for like a school test, just remember that the hippocampus is what is like helping you do all of this, and it's what is in charge of your memories. Lastly is the amygdala. I know Raksha covered this in a little bit of detail, but I'll go over it in a lot more detail. So the amygdala, like she said, is the brain's emotion processing center. So whenever you receive any input from other parts of the brain and other brain functions, the amygdala responds to those inputs or those hormones or those signals with a specific emotion. So if you think about any emotion that you guys like put in the chat, so like fear, sadness, pleasure, aggression, all of this is linked to the amygdala. It's what allows you to release those emotions and perform them. So it also detects any kind of fear or stress you're feeling through the presence of stress hormones, and it's what allows you to prepare for any kind of emergency event. So if that fight or flight that Raksha was talking about, the amygdala is also linked to that. So that's a connection that you should probably remember when you think about the amygdala. And lastly, it has been known to be connected to aggression, like I said earlier. And it is said that the bigger the amygdala is, the more aggressive the behavior of a particular species. And this is obviously a correlation. It's not like a fact that has been confirmed, but that's something that has been studied So why don't we take this time right now to label all these parts within your notebook. Underneath each, there is like a specific or very brief description of the function of that specific part. I know you guys like took notes earlier on, but this is also like a very helpful way to remember it very briefly. And I saw that there were like some questions in the chat. So while you guys do that, I'm gonna go ahead and open the chat and check those out.
So one of the questions was, what does the amygdala correspond with? So I'm assuming you mean like, what does the function of the amygdala? Or it's a subcortical region that receives input from various parts of the brain and responds with so it responds with an emotion. So the amygdala would get information. So as I said before, the thalamus is the middleman, right? So the thalamus actually gets the information from the spinal cord. So when I touch something, that information goes to the thalamus. And then the thalamus would relay that to the amygdala. So once the amygdala receives that input, then it would respond with an emotion. So if I said the example of the teacher earlier, right? So the teacher tells you something, you hear it, so that's the sensory information. The thalamus would get it and then tell it to the amygdala, and then the amygdala would respond with surprise. Does that kind of answer your question?
And I think like the thalamus, one thing I've learned always is the thalamus is like the brain's control center. And my psych teacher would often call it like the 911 call center. So every piece of information that you like learn goes through the thalamus, and that's what like it like sends it to other parts, so you can send that like receiving signal, or you can respond to something. So like I'm pretty sure that that example that Raksha gave was pretty good. Yeah, that's a great way to remember it.
Also, for Morgan, your earlier question with the pseudo-Barber effect, so that's where you're unable to show emotion, right? And that relates to uncontrollable laughter. So that would actually be related to the thalamus as well. So if you think about it, the thalamus is if it's like the 911 call center, as Amadini said, right? So if it isn't able to respond or relay that information to different parts of the brain or the amygdala, then the way you display emotions would also be affected. So if you think about it, it's all about that disconnect. There's no connection between these different parts of the limbic system, which is why you're having these adverse reactions. Does that make sense?
If everyone has had the time to copy down this chart, can you guys like just put a yes in the chat so we can move on? Okay, I'm gonna take that as a yes. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on, but I think we mentioned this in the beginning. This presentation and the recording will be available to you guys afterwards, so you can always go back and refer to them.
All right, so we've done.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna mute myself. Sorry.
We've done quite a bit of talking so far, and now we're going to move on to an activity, the Emoji Project. So for this, it's also there in your Neuro notebook if you're following along using that. But on the next slide, once we go there, there's going to be a bunch of emojis displayed. So basically for this, you're going to pick an emoji and then write a paragraph explaining like what emotion that is, first of all, and then what limbic system structures would you think are involved in creating that emotion and how they would. So these are some examples of some emojis that you could do. So, and if you can't draw for any reason, like if you're online or a digital version, you could just like paste in an image. There's no big deal of that. And we'll be sharing this afterwards, so we can take a few minutes to do that. If you guys have any questions, meanwhile, you can put it in the chat and we can answer.
And while you guys do that, I think we're gonna go ahead and separate out into the breakout rooms. So once you guys are done, you guys can move at your pace. What does the hamburger mean? Hungry. Yes, I think that's what it was insinuating. Yes. So you guys can go ahead, and once you're done, you guys can chat with your respective groups. So Elizabeth, I think we're good to go with the breakout rooms.
So you guys should have received an invitation to join the breakout room, so you can go ahead and click the invitation.
Just to confirm, are Raksha and I both in the main room?
No, you got an invitation. I was just waiting for everybody to join.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So why don't you guys just take the next few seconds to, or next few minutes to answer or fill out this emoji project.
All right. Does anybody like want to? I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was gonna say, let me just share my screen again, but
Okay. While she's getting that up, does anybody, like maybe one person or one or two people want to share their emoji with like the entire group? Okay. Danya, do you want to share? I think you put yes in the chat. Okay, so Danya says she chose the hamburger and that the emotion is hunger. And sometimes everybody gets hungry and wants to eat food. If you're not hungry at all, I don't think you're human. It relates to the hypothalamus because it controls hunger and thirst, which is exactly what happens when you are hungry and want to eat. And the hypothalamus lets your brain know that you're hungry, which relates to the stomach grumbling. And then your thalamus sends signal to your amygdala and makes you moodier around others too when you are hungry. I like that connection that you made between being hungry and being moody. Whoa, that's a lot of people. Okay. I'll read. Okay, Gurkiran she also put the hamburger and also, she also said the hypothalamus because it controls the hunger and thirst emotions. And then sends signals to the amygdala. And then somebody else says that they chose thinking, which falls under the structure thalamus because thalamus has, it relays messages to the cerebral cortex, which is responsible for thinking, and all that happens in that part of the brain. And yeah, and then someone else put learning, and then the hippocampus because it's the structure that helps you process information and emotions and regulates learning and conscious memories, and also helps you encode your long-term memories. So everything that you learn goes to your hippocampus. Great.
all right. Let's go ahead to do our final activity, which is a Kahoot. So let me open up the Kahoot so you guys can start logging on. It would be very helpful if you guys have like another device to do this on because you want to be able to see the questions on the screen. And if you don't know how to play Kahoot, can you guys like put in the chat and I can explain it right now. Also, someone else shared their emotion. So I can, Raksha, do you want to read that while I set this up?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So the last emotion that somebody put is being embarrassed, and they said the structures involved are the thalamus, amygdala, and the hippocampus. So if you do something which embarrasses you, the thalamus would send a signal to your amygdala, which can make you feel fear or embarrassment. And then that memory can be remembered in your hippocampus, which will trouble keeping that emotional memory. And that's completely right. Does anybody else want to share? Wow, she's getting the Kahoot set up. Okay, I think it's up, so make sure, like Amadini said, have another device, or if you're able to have like 2 windows and keep it side by side on your computer, that works too. But just make sure you can see both of them at the same time.
Yes. And if you guys like don't know how to play Kahoot, basically the questions will appear on my shared screen, and using your device or another tab that you have open, you're gonna have to click on one of the options. And there is like a leader, like a prize board that you can like place on, and it's really fun. It's basically like just to see how much you guys learned. And if you're ever like confused with one of the questions midway through, feel free to like just ask in the chat and I'll pause, I'll explain it and move on. I like the amygdala name. Okay, we have, I think that's pretty much it. Does anyone need more time? Feel free to let us know and I can pause for another second. Okay, so I think there's 11 and there's 16. So I think that's pretty much, okay. Yes, Amish, you can rejoin the call. How about, yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that right now? And I am just going to get started on the first couple of questions, so you won't miss out on that much. So some of the questions are just like what you guys like, so you're not going to be penalized for saying anything wrong because there is no wrong answer. But from what we have learned today, which one did you guys like the best? And that can be in terms of like function, structure, how relevant it is. And I see the most common answer is the thalamus. Yeah, I can see why. It's a very like prominent feature of our like brain, and it plays a big role in everything we do. Other common answers, the hippocampus, yes, memories are very important, and I can see that too. Let's go ahead. I think Amish, is your connection working better now? Hopefully it is. Okay, great. I'm gonna move on to the next question. The questions that are not really testing your skills are not worth any points. So make sure you pay attention to the picture or on the board, and because it will be followed by another question. So I'm gonna show you guys an emotion and you're gonna connect it to a specific part of your brain. Try your best to answer, and you can always like look at the you can look at the Neuro Notebook and to see if that will help. Okay, so I see this one was quite split between the hypothalamus and the thalamus. I do understand why you guys said the hypothalamus, but the thalamus is what like regulates how alert you are, and I think Raksha went over this earlier. So that is the main center involved, but obviously the other parts of your brain do play a role in these features. It's not just like one part of the brain controls everything. So they're all interwoven together. And at the top is Ayushi. Don't fret yet if you have not like placed. We still have like 10 questions left.
And for these questions, although we're like picking the main structure that's involved, keep in mind that it is a very interconnected part, like what Amalini said. For anything that your brain does, it's never actually just one thing. There's always like a connection, but we're just focusing on like what's the main thing.
Mm-hmm. And this one, the answer is hypothalamus, because like we said, the hypothalamus is what regulates the 3 F's, so fight, flight, and food. And this would probably fall under like fight, where you're like, it's like it regulates homeostasis, and that is like regulating internal conditions. And one of those conditions is temperature, because you want to maintain a stable temperature within your body. So that's why this is the answer. The hippocampus, just a reminder, is involved with memories, and that is its main function. And oh, the leaderboard, Ayushi's still at the top, but Amygdala's catching up. So the next question, what limbic system would this man use to become more alert? So I gave a hint right before this, so hopefully that helps. Oh, okay. So this one is the thalamus. So I think we said the thalamus for this one, even though I technically feel like there are 3 answers that could fit for this. So I feel that hypothalamus, thalamus, and amygdala would fit, because hypothalamus is involved with that fight or flight situation. The thalamus, once again, is that main center that regulates your level of alertness, like Raksha said. So that's probably why we said this was the answer. But the amygdala would also fit, because it allows you to not really become alert, but it allows you to express emotions of being alert, like being more like angry, or like serious. Like that would be like the emotions that you would get from it. It's not going to necessarily be directly related to the state of being alert. So that's why that answer didn't fit, and I can see why you guys gave that response. Oh, the leaderboard switched up a little. Hopefully we'll see how this goes. We still have like 6 questions, so don't give up yet. That was quick. And this one is, yes, obviously fear. There's going to be a follow-up question, so make sure you guys like think about it. I think the order got switched, but it might come back up later on. So for this one, think about what the function, yes. So all 3 of these are right. So think about, when you think about the amygdala, you're going to think about a specific set of functions. And if you don't have it, or you lose the ability to lose it, you wouldn't be able to perform those functions. And with the amygdala, it's involved with all our main emotions that we use in our daily life. So pleasure, happiness, aggression, and fear are just some examples of those, and you wouldn't be able to do any of them. That was a small change, but Ayushi's still at the lead, but we have some others also catching up. Which limbic structure controls learning processes? Okay, so this one, the correct answer is yes, the hippocampus. And if you're wondering why, the majority of you got it right. It's the hippocampus, because the hippocampus is obviously involved in memorizing. It's involved in storing your memories. So obviously I mentioned this in the very beginning. If you're trying to memorize something for a test, you're going to be relying on your hippocampus to store that in your brain long term. So that's why the answer is hippocampus. No change to the leaderboard. If you needed to memorize something, which part of your limbic system would you use? And I felt like this one is pretty connected to the last one. I think I may have forgotten to switch up the questions a little bit, but yes, perfect. Yes, I just mentioned it earlier. The hippocampus is the answer. Again, no change to the leaderboard, but we have 3 questions left. So yeah, this one is connected to that first question. We asked this earlier on. Yes, the answer is amygdala. I could understand why you would once again say hypothalamus. I think the hypothalamus and amygdala are very connected, but we were just when we were thinking about this question, we were thinking like in terms of like primarily what's gonna let you like perform that emotion, and it's going to be the amygdala.
Also, for like the hypothalamus, when you think about like fight or flight, food, and all of that, it's more of like releasing hormones and releasing other things that are gonna cause that emotion than actually like literally causing that emotion, if that makes sense. So like for what's a good example? For like hunger or whatever, there's like a bunch of emotions. Like there's hormones, sorry. There's like ghrelin, there's insulin, all of these things that are released by the hypothalamus, and then the amygdala is the one that actually creates that emotion of, yo, I'm hungry.
Yeah, and I think like I think I was stating this example or earlier. So like say for example, you see a spider or like some other animal that you're like scared of or something. Your body, obviously, you're going to respond with shock and like fear, and that would be because of the amygdala. But you know, when you see something you're scared of, like your heart rate increases, your body temperature increases, that's because of your hypothalamus. So everything that happens internally, that's allowing you to like react to that situation, that's because of the hypothalamus. But they're very interconnected. Oh, that was quite a change. We have 2 questions left. So Mia is hungry. Which part of her limbic system would allow her to know that she is hungry and that she needs her food? And this is very similar to the hamburger example. Yes. The answer is hypothalamus, because we just went over it. It's fulfilling like your body's needs, and it's like regulating homeostasis. So it's gonna let you know that you need food. So those 3 F's, be sure to remember that. And last question. This is not really a question, but just for us to get some primary feedback. Okay, I'm glad the majority of you did enjoy it, but if you didn't understand some of the topics, feel free to stay back like 2 minutes, 2 more minutes, and Raksha and I can try to explain it to you guys and hopefully help. But I'm glad the majority of you did like it. And let's see who's at the top. So congratulations to Amygdala, Ayushi, and Yusra. Please let me know if I'm saying your name wrong, but congratulations to you guys. And Samyeha, I'm sorry, Sam, and I didn't know who the last person was. Raksha, did you get to see it by any chance?
No, I didn't.
But it's fine. I congratulations to everyone who did get the answers right. Let me go back to the presentation. So
Okay, thank you guys for staying here to learn about the emotional brain with us. If you have any questions, feel free to like put it in the chat right now, or you could even like raise your hand on the Zoom function if you want to like speak in the participants window. Either one works. Yeah, so I'll take a. You want to just move on to the next slide, and if anybody has any questions.
All right, so unfortunately, the virtual challenge coordinators for March were not able to make it to this workshop, but I'll just be filling in for Jessica and Shreya for the moment. So the virtual challenge for this month includes two parts, a crossword puzzle and a meme creating competition, and together it's called the Limbic puzzle. So after completing 11 clues in the crossword, a secret word will be revealed, and that will be the topic for your meme. So we've included a website for you to use to create your own meme. And when you're finished, you can attach it to the document and submit it, which will be posted shortly after the workshop ends. So good luck to everyone and hope you all participate.
And that is pretty much it to like our workshop today. We're super glad that we got to teach you guys something so exciting, and we hope that you got to retain some pretty cool and new information. Thank you for coming, and I hope you guys fill out the feedback form that they'll send in the Google Classroom soon, and participate in the virtual challenge. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to stay back. I know that some of you said you didn't understand some topics. Feel free to stay back, but otherwise you're free to go. And I hope you have a good rest of your Saturday/Sunday, wherever you are.
And also remember that office hours is next Saturday at 12 p.m. EST. So if you have any questions about anything, you can pop in on that call as well.